Welcome to Elevating Outdoor Living Through Technology. My name is Jen Mallett. I am your instructor today, and I'll share a little bit about myself before we get into the actual course. The course will run a little under an hour, so we'll pack a lot of information in here. If you have questions, do feel free to put them in the chat or feel free to follow up with us after the course. I'll also mention that this is one of several courses that we teach once a month, primarily for design, build, architect, and trade partners. With that said, we welcome consumers as well, as everybody likes to learn about technology. So as I said, my name is Jen Mallett. I'm the founder and CEO of Level Up Automation. We are a company that is focused on being really trusted advisors to our business partners as all of this technology just continues to move and change. And we are based out of Massachusetts, but we operate in 10 US markets. A couple fun facts. I started and franchised my business about 4 years ago. Level Up was founded in 2016, and the additional territories came in 2020. And I just love technology. I've been in the industry for a little over 25 years. And a weird fact about me is that I have 4 cats. And to me, it's not enough. So you might be a dog person or a cat person. I'm definitely a cat person. I love cats. So that's me. And I'm excited to share with you Elevating Outdoor Living Through Technology today. This course is brought to you by CEDIA. CEDIA stands for the Custom Electronics Design and Installation Association. Basically, we are the trade nonprofit organization for smart home professionals. And we are a body of companies and manufacturers that certify ourselves to provide excellence in the area of home technology. And essentially, CEDIA works with the IDCEC, which essentially is the International Design Continuing Education Council. And this is how we're able to certify those of you who have certifications to maintain with content like this. So CEDIA and IDCEC worked together and created essentially a platform for these 6 courses to be able to deliver you the important information on the trends that are really happening right now. And this is just a little bit more. There we go. Thank you. So what are we learning today? We're going to get right into it. First really is understanding what are the key things to think about when you're looking at the outside of a home, whether it be the front or the back. And the things that we're going to talk about really are things that are environmental, the actual landscape design of that space, and any other type of things like retaining walls, anything structurally that might be influencing the design portion. So we'll talk about that. Secondly, we're going to talk about the infrastructure that you need to bring this technology outside, and essentially what ratings are required, what do you need from a Wi-Fi signal strength perspective, things like that. Then we're going to dig into how do you control all this? Is it through a phone? Is it through voice? Is it through touch pads on the wall? How are people going to live and enjoy the space? And what is the right control mechanism for them? And then lastly, we're going to really cover how do you integrate all of this technology in something that's really cohesive, easy to use, and hits all the important things that are happening outside now. And really, they are things like comfort, safety, entertainment, how much you enjoy it. And technology really does a nice job essentially bringing it all together so that people can just enjoy their backyard as opposed to picking up their phone and having to fiddle with things, right? So we want outdoor technology really to be sophisticated and integrated, but also simple to control. So those are the 4 things we're going to cover today within the hour. I'll just click. So what can you really do outside? Pretty much anything. You can build an outdoor theater. You can have a prayer space. You can have nooks where you entertain, right? So whatever your kind of idea of how you live in your backyard, if you're working with a client, how that family or person lives in the backyard, there's a variety of things that we can really do. And so what's nice about this photo over here is it shows really without it hitting you over the head, it shows really a lot of the different things that technology can control and design around. So for example, we've got some nice niche lighting here that is complementing the masonry on the front side of this wall here, right? We've got a pool, which we can also control with lighting in there. We've got sound. There's different seating areas where we're able to really make sure that we've got zones of light and zones of sound that interact with that space. So what can you really do? You can really do whatever you can imagine doing, as long as the infrastructure is there in terms of connectivity and design. I want to share a couple statistics, which really speak to how much this category is growing as a business. So according to the American Institute of Architects, so the AIA, with home design trends, we've got 22% of architects reporting an increase in client demand for dedicated outdoor living spaces. And that data point is from 2023. I think it's probably a lot higher than 22% now, but the value of the outdoor living space is $41 billion industry. It is huge. And to give you a little bit of context, the technology and integration industry is 116 billion. So that 41 billion is a pretty good chunk of the overall technology integration industry. So there's a lot of demand here. It's growing. The capabilities that we have are much more advanced than they were even 5 years ago. So this is extremely exciting space to be in. It's continuing to grow. And much like design inside the house, when it comes to technology and all sorts of other aspects, the process is very similar in terms of working with an architect, an interior designer, a builder, a landscape designer, that partnership around how are people going to live in that space? What are they going to enjoy? And then how do we fit, working with all the trades together, how do we fit the lighting, the audio, the comfort, the connectivity? Maybe there's also televisions like in this picture. How do we do that in a way that's really seamless for the client and also helps us get to a backyard like this, which is stunning? So big industry here. And what are these outdoor solutions? Well, they're very extensive. So we talked about lighting. We can control lighting, certainly zones of lighting. We can control the temperature and color of lighting to create experiences. We also can control water features, whether it be a fountain or some other sort of water feature. We can work lighting and sound with our water feature. So that's a nice kind of tie-in. Wi-Fi is really important. You need connectivity outside. A lot of people will say, oh, aren't things wireless now? A lot of things are wireless. The communication can be wireless, but almost all of the devices that we design around will be hardwired and then connected to Wi-Fi. So that's an important point. The Wi-Fi portion of the outdoor solution is really important so that when you're out by that pool, maybe it's 100 feet from the house, that client has their Wi-Fi signal so that they can control things that they want. So audio distribution is another really important part of outdoor design. There's a variety of different options from, large bollards that provide really kind of expansive sound that you can hide within landscape to really things that are hidden away that you don't see and you only hear. Audio distribution design we'll talk about in a future slide, and that portion is really important in the outdoor space because it's very easy to create hot spots where people can't talk to each other over having music, things like that. So those are the type of things that we look at when we're designing audio, and we'll talk about later. Video, live streaming, if you want a game, you want a movie, what do you want outside, right? There are outdoor televisions, there are outdoor motorized screens for movie theaters. There are blow-up products that are out there too that people use. So people really have brought a lot of that video content and are enjoying it outside now. Pool and spa controls can be integrated all within the outdoor solution, motorized pergola, CCTV if you need it, access control, and irrigation. So those are really a lot of different things that are happening outside. And you might think, well, what does irrigation have to do with technology? Well, irrigation, just like many other products and categories, now have Wi-Fi control and can work with other pieces of technology to be more efficient and also make sure that, essentially your irrigation is operating as it should and can be monitored and things like that. So outdoor solutions are broad. So we're going to talk more about audio and, audio within the outdoor space. Where we like to start is really understanding what are people listening to and how do they want to listen to it. Part of the design is really thinking about, okay, what are we offering in terms of music for this client? Is this client a big music person, or are they a big movie person, or do they like to listen to podcasts, right? So clients all have different needs. Do they have children? Do they not? They all have different needs. So really, when we're looking at audio and we're looking at the back of the backyard outdoor, we're looking at, okay, how are people going to enjoy certain spaces? And then what's the audio content that needs to be fit into that? And from there, we talk about what does that look like? So in this case, this is a hidden away, large kind of bollard speaker, which provides a lot of great directional sound. And these can be placed in different parts of the backyard and work in conjunction with other things like satellite speakers, which you've probably seen, which are, typically on a little bit of a pole, and they've got a satellite head to them. There are also rock speakers. There are speakers that go under eaves and hidden away. So there's a variety of different options here. And really our goal within audio design is to make sure we're putting the right product in the right spot based on what the client wants to listen to, when they want to listen to it. And then also making sure that there aren't going to be, as I mentioned earlier, hot spots. So if you could imagine people sitting around a fire pit, right? Maybe it's a nice gas, beautiful fire pit at night. You want to make sure that that sound dispersion is designed and planned well so that people can have conversations over the music. And that it is not where you're sitting, where you've got, a piece of audio sitting in one of your ears, right? That all happens through really thoughtful design and also understanding the speaker and how does that sound essentially work with that speaker. Is it a speaker that's going to create a hotspot or not? So audio is, essentially, planned very, very early. With typically landscape designers and architects, we do need to run outdoor wire. Typically, it is in direct burial wire, which we can put right in the ground, or in some cases, we might need to run conduit. So in that case, if there's conduit, we might work with the electrician or other tradespeople to try to utilize the space and understand where our wires are going to go versus other trades. Make sure that the wires don't get cut during construction. That's happened before, right? But if everybody's on the same page with where the audio is, where it's placed on the plans, and we've got a wiring diagram, then you hope that that stuff doesn't happen. But that's the audio category. This picture right here, if you look at the ceiling, what you'll see are inset in ceiling architectural speakers. And these particular ones, the picture here, you can see them. In a number of cases, what we can do is actually match the millwork on the ceiling and or completely hide the speaker behind or above rather the ceiling. And you might ask like, well, how can that work? Will it still sound great? And the answer is yes, because there's specific speakers that are engineered to be up above the ceiling and behind material and still produce a great sound. So this is a good example of, essentially on the left and the right, you can see there's 4 speakers here. You've got a seating area near the kind of like breakfast bar area, and then you've got this area over here, which is closer to the outdoors. And you can see that, it's just even dispersion of the speakers, providing nice ambient sound to those spaces. So that's architectural speakers. And so if you look at lighting, which is our next category here, this is really an opportunity to show off the beautiful designs that are happening, right? So I think that we've all been in a space where we've seen a home at night and it's well lit and it's beautiful. And then we've also probably seen some homes that are not well lit, right? So when we look at lighting design in, the outdoor area, we're looking at really saying, okay, what are the pieces that we want to highlight? What are the things that the client or the builder or the architect really like put a lot of custom investment in? And then how do we light that at night to really showcase the investment? So a good example here would be, if you can see, there's this like water feature wall over on the right with some foliage that's in there at night. That would be really beautiful to light up, right? If it's not lit up or planned to light up, you kind of lose it as soon as the sun goes down. So, essentially understanding, okay, where are the places that we want to really kind of highlight the beauty, and maybe even, like people say, paint with light. How do you do that at night? And you do it through really uplighting things like trees, like you can see a palm tree over here, looking at different pieces of the house that you want to essentially showcase. So lighting is a lot of fun. It can be linear lighting, which many people might call strip lighting or tape lighting. We call it linear lighting. Linear lighting can be inside pools. It can be underneath lips. It's really important that the lighting has the right rating and is a good quality product, because it definitely will have a lot more longevity, and also the quality of the light will be better with a better fixture. So you want to make sure that when you're working with like an integrator like us or somebody else, that you're really understanding a lot about the light source, because not all lighting fixtures, even though they may say that they have they're really high quality, they're not always high quality. So you're going to want to make sure that you're working with a good lighting line that has a quality product. And then working to understand what are the different color temperatures happening in this backyard. So I'll give you an example where we had a client who had their backyard built out, and it was beautiful, and we were adding some audio later, and the lighting was already in. And what was really interesting about this lighting is that the color temperatures of the lights that they had in their backyard did not match. And the fixtures that they had could not tune to a place where they would match. So if you can imagine within lighting, having something that's almost like a warm color, right, with some of your lights, and then with other lights having something that's really bright white, cool, right? So those don't kind of like match up at all. And also cool lighting at night isn't really a great way to relax. Typically you want something that has a warmer temperature to it. So, essentially here, very similar to audio, you're creating lighting zones. So in audio design, you're thinking about where are people sitting, how are they going to move within the space. Lighting is very similar in that you're thinking about, okay, what are we going to highlight? And then how are we going to control it? And controlling it really dials in what you need to know in terms of how do I want these zones of light to be operating? And that's really all about figuring that out in the designing process early is really important. This is a cool little video. So, the control portion of it can all work together. So in this case, there's fire pit, there is a water feature, and there is uplighting, right? And there's lighting actually in the pool too. All of those features, when they're designed the right way, actually all work within the same control platform. They can be essentially created so that you can create scenes in different colors and things like that very easily through essentially, bringing it all together within a control system. So the lighting, the water features, the fire features, the audio, all of that can come together into really like one simple to control system that is able to do a variety of different things. So this is a cool view of a backyard that it wouldn't be great to walk back here and open up 5 different apps to get your music, your lighting, turn your water features on, and maybe put the fire feature on, right? You want all that to work together, and that's what a control system does when it's planned well for outdoor spaces. Let's talk about video. So for video, it used to be, 5-10 years ago, very, very expensive to have an outdoor television. They have since come down in price quite a bit. And outdoor, you can have outdoor televisions, outdoor projection. You can have motorized, mounted TVs that come up out of a, let's say like an island or something like that. So there's a lot of different options that you have. The key thing here is that you want to make sure that you use an outdoor rated product. Some people, look at televisions as things that are just kind of consumables. You can buy a cheap one from a big box store, put it up for a year. If it dies in a year and a half, people don't care, right? They can take it down, put a new one up. But really, outdoor televisions are typically more expensive because they are engineered to be outside. And the things that electronics don't like are things like humidity, any type of water anywhere, typically not great. And the outdoor TVs are engineered for that. The indoor TVs are not. So what you're providing for people that do that is really a fire hazard. And the outdoor televisions are meant to essentially, if you look at sun and shade and the viewability of something, outdoor televisions tend to have something more nits, which essentially helps you kind of be able to see things when you've got sun and natural light. So do definitely, when you think about video, just know that the outdoor products are really where you want to stay from a safety perspective, also from a performance perspective. And nowadays, there are a variety of different brands that have good quality outdoor televisions, and the price, therefore, has come down, which is great. The foundation of everything within any type of smart home really is the network connectivity. And the network connectivity is, essentially the networking equipment and how it is distributed throughout the home and outside. So in this case, we have, for example, this is a data rack, which may or may not live in the basement. In this case, it's kind of shown off in the hallway here. It looks like there's a door, so that's there. But you have within there essentially all of your control pieces and also your router. And likely through that, you have access points, which are really distributing that Wi-Fi throughout the home, including outside. So within the outside space, what we'll typically do is design for outdoor Wi-Fi early on and wire for it, even if the backyard isn't ready. Even if it's a phase 2, we'll make sure that there's a network line that is running from the centralized location all the way to where the back of the property is, so that when that outdoor space is ready, we're able to mount an access point and essentially provide the communication out to all the devices that are there. So outdoor Wi-Fi, they're IP rated products that mount on the side of a house. They're not too large. They're not like, they don't stick out, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So typically what they do is we just kind of mount it with the other products that aren't going to interfere with it. And then essentially it just taps right into the internet that's inside the house. controlling the outdoor environment. So we talked a little bit about this early on, and having all this great technology is fun. It's great to have music. It's great to have television. It's great to have cool lights and be able to entertain. But none of it really is a great investment if you can't control it easily. And I would say that in many cases, because the outdoor space is often enjoyed by many people, really the simplicity of control is even more important, because what you want is you want somebody to be able to go into your backyard, maybe it's a family member or somebody else, a guest, and be able to enjoy the space without having a lot of difficulty, being able to turn on the lights, turn on the music, sit and relax and enjoy the space. So controlling the outdoor environment, similar to the indoor environment, essentially it's all run off the same control system and the same Wi-Fi, and the controlling portion really is about understanding as much as we can about the client, how they envision living in the space, working with the architect, the builder, the landscape person to make sure that we're placing things where they need to be, and that we're able to have that control portion simplified. And a good example of how it wouldn't be simplified, as I mentioned earlier, is if we had a lot of point-to-point systems out here. So if it were like, let's say there's a smart fan and lighting, there's sound, there's a television, a few other things. If those things aren't integrated into one system, then you're using 5 different remotes, and then somebody loses the remote, right? You get the picture. We really want to drive simplicity here, and that just happens through planning and making sure that we're selecting, or part of the process when the products are being selected, to make sure that that product, that lighting fixture, that speaker, whatever it is, that it is interoperable with one control system, so that we can avoid the 5 remotes and 5 app situation. Access control and security. So within access control, really that's about how do people get into the property, right? So there are different things that we control outside. And if you look at gate mechanisms, for example, those are very popular for outdoor spaces. If you have a very long driveway with a gate, there's access control capabilities that we would want there to be able to open and close the gate, have two-way talk. And we do that really through planning. So for example, in the case where you have a gate that is maybe 200 feet from the house at the end of a driveway, we'd want to make sure, like, either there is a conduit that's run from the house to the gate so that we can get the communication protocol there, or we're going to trench to get to that gate to be able to, essentially hardwire the access control portion that is there. For security, if you look at things like cameras, most of them are PoE, so they're power over Ethernet, and they work in conjunction with our network setup. When we're working on security, which is primarily an outdoor product, some people put cameras inside, but not many. We're really looking at, okay, are they interested in things like license plate recognition or face recognition? Do they want any AI capabilities? Do they want the capability to be able to keep all of their video recordings private? Do they not want to pay monthly fees? Those are some of the questions that we ask that really help us get to the right design solution for the client. And then, of course, we provide our recommendation based on what we think is really going to be right for the property. But access control and security really is about security cameras, smart locks, two-way talk gate features, all sorts of different things like that. So where do we start? We talked about a lot of different categories, right? And, in the past, you might have 3 or 4 different trades maybe working in this. And today, still, you might have 3 or 4 different trades working on a design like this. And where we really want to start is working with the other trades, understanding essentially what their role is in the project, and figuring out how can we support them as technology integrators. make sure that if we're not running the wire, that the right wire is selected and going to the right location. So in this case, we have, essentially 3 different sitting areas here. It's a top-down view. And what we're able to do is really work with the client and other trade partners to understand, okay, where's the audio going to be? Where is the lighting going to be? Do we want it to be color? Do we want it to be tunable white? How is it going to work in conjunction with other things that are happening within that space? We also have other products that essentially work within the space that count as outdoor technology. So if you can think of sitting in, maybe it's like a porch area and maybe it's buggy out, right? Another technology product is that we have automated screens that keep mosquitoes out, right? That can be automated to go down before dusk, right? So people can enjoy their backyard better. So that's an example of another place. But you get to that really by understanding how are people going to live in these different zones, and then matching the technology to solve really a problem or an opportunity that that space may have. So we really start with architectural plans. It cannot, early is the best, because the earlier that we're involved to help support this, the better chance that we'll be able to make sure that the infrastructure is there, not just for the first portion of the project, but let's say it's a phased in project where they might be starting with a patio and some masonry work, but they're going to add a pool in 3 years, right? We want to be making sure that we're supporting that pool area with the infrastructure that's needed while we're doing this first phase, right? So that's some of the work that we do as we're looking at architectural plans and working with clients. Here's some things you want to watch out for. You certainly, I mentioned one of them earlier. You definitely want to watch out for lighting fixtures and understanding if you have different fixtures, what the lighting technology is within those fixtures, and how is it going to look. And so that's a big piece. The lighting design is really making sure that the fixtures are all going to work within the same color temperature, that we can look at zones and be able to turn things on and off when needed. And also that we're making sure that there's not a lot of top-down type of light, because that creates glare, and glare at night for humans, is generally not enjoyable. So for this, we're really looking at, okay, you want to make sure that you've got places that you're accenting, but you don't have a lot of glare coming down. So that's one thing. In addition to the color temperature, making sure that the fixtures are going to work in unison with each other at the right temperature. I would also say that one of the big things we see in outdoor spaces really is the audio control and how the audio sounds, and making sure that you don't have hot spots, especially in seating areas. Really, there's nothing worse than kind of trying to have a conversation and not being able to hear somebody because you've got a speaker, right? That was placed somewhere that could have been placed somewhere else, right? So I'd say that those are really a few of the big things that you want to look out for. And then the other one I mentioned earlier, which is making sure that the actual end user, and this is what most people miss, the end user should be able to pick whatever it is up and be able to control it without thinking too much. It should not take a lot of fumbling or things like that. It needs to be very easy to enjoy. And that really happens through good design. Some environmental considerations you might have as you're working on a project. So we've got projects in all over the country: Florida, Montana, Virginia, Connecticut, New England. I'm outside Boston. And so depending upon where the home is, right, you might have things like, you might have to consider ocean, right, which has its own kind of own spin on it, right? Because if you're getting hurricane force winds or other things coming in, by the way, there are shades that can kind of, they don't fully guarantee that they'll help protect your home, but there are things like hurricane shutters and things like that that we also have that can be automated for certain scenarios where people want to have that. But in the, essentially here, what we want to do is make sure that all of the products that we're scoping are going to have great lifetime value. So we want to make sure if it is an ocean facing property or something else that has like an environmental factor, like in Arizona, it might be heat and sun, that we're considering that as part of the products. Because what we don't want to have, for example, with a lot of sun, we don't want products to be fading in color in 3 to 4 years, right? We want to make sure that it really fits that environment. So there's specialty products that fit ocean facing, backyards, and as well as places where there's intense heat or intense sun. So that, when we're looking at that, we're really trying to make sure that the product is going to last a long time and it's the right product given specific environmental considerations. This is the second portion of the environmental consideration. So after we look at, really like what is the environment, we're looking at the terrain. So in this case, for example, there's a lot of foliage, there's a lot of trees and things like that. And when we're looking at lighting and sound and the other categories, we're really thinking about, okay, how do we work with this terrain? In this case, it's almost like there's a cliff, right? Which is providing a really beautiful place for this person to have a bath and look at the ocean. But it creates some concern around how are we going to make sure that if this is an existing property, how do we make sure we wire for it? What type of rocks are below this area? Are we going to be able to get through some of that? So we are, as we're doing walkthroughs and we're working with landscape designers, we're trying to understand what are the materials they're going to put in, and then what are the natural environmental factors that we're going to need to consider, like drainage areas or where existing electrical is running where we don't want to interfere. So there's a lot of planning that happens as part of this as well. Product considerations we talked a bit about, and this is really, I think, the fun part, which is thinking about, all right, how are the things going to look? For most people, it's fun, whether it be lighting or sound. And product considerations we really need to make sure that all the products outside are rated to be outside. As I mentioned earlier, indoor TVs are not meant to be outside all year round and can even cause things like fire. So we're really working within the design aspect of a project, working to protect the client and the other tradespeople to make sure that the product that's being selected is high quality, that it all works together, and that it's meant to be outside and has a great warranty. Infrastructure. So as I mentioned earlier, while a lot of the control of these products are wireless, right? They can be through a remote or a smartphone or voice or a touchpad. There's a lot of different kind of like ways we can make it work, right? When we're trying to give a system or a piece of technology a command. The infrastructure is critical. And even though they're wirelessly controlled, they need to be hardwired. So speakers need to be hardwired with outdoor rated speaker wire. Lighting needs to be hardwired. Most outdoor lighting nowadays is low voltage. So it might be the infrastructure there kind of depends on the actual fixture. So those are two pieces, is just making sure that we've got speaker wire where we need it. We've got lighting wire, the right kind where it's needed. We also need to make sure that we've got Wi-Fi signal out there. If there are televisions out there, we're going to need to figure out, is the client streaming? Are we hardwiring that television? Probably. If it's a newer spot and we have the capability to do it and there's an outdoor television, most people stream nowadays. So one of the best ways to make sure that you don't have interruptions is to hardwire that television, and the network cable that goes into that television goes all the way back to that rack that we saw earlier, so that they're getting the fastest speeds and not having a lot of buffering when they're watching their content outside. So infrastructure, really important, and it really happens early on in the planning process. Controlling the system, we've talked a lot about, and it really is, I think, probably the most important part is making sure that things are easy to use and that anybody can kind of walk into the space and be able to pick something up and turn on lights and music and things like that. So the different modes that we talk about with clients and our trade partners, really understanding more about how people naturally control things. Are they people that like things on the wall? Do they like a light switch? If they like a light switch, we can create a keypad of scenes that are just people can press, like good night, good morning, relax, entertain. That would be an example where they just press that button and the music, the lights, the water features, the fire features all work at once just with the press of one button. And that's really the simplicity that we're looking to design to when we have a control system. Now, in this case, this is a touch screen. Touch screens are great and can control, essentially temperature, water features, fire features, scenes, lighting. You can see your Spotify on the touch screen, right? So for some people, they really like that portion. Other people don't want to have touchscreens. They don't like the way they look on the wall, and that's okay too. So, essentially when we're looking at controlling the system, we're trying to understand and learn more about the client so that we can match the right control mechanism, whether it be a touch panel, a keypad, an iPad even that's loose, that's got an app on it, or voice. All of those are capabilities that we customize and design around based on what the client's preference is. So we bring it all together and, at the end of the day, enjoying a backyard with great lighting, sound, video, whatever the entertainment is that the client wants is, the way they're able to enjoy it the most, right? So for us, what we try to do is really take a wide view of what the technology features can be, what's possible within that space, and then helping select the products and the fixtures that are going to have a lot of longevity in the space based on the environment. Also are a high quality product because they are outside, they need to be a higher quality product. And then making sure that essentially we're bringing it all together within a simple control system that allows anybody to be able to step back here and enjoy it. So essentially when we do that, we start with the design work, we go through essentially getting approval there, then we do the pre-wire, or if another trade is doing the pre-wire, we would advise them and help them with location, make sure they're running the right thing. And then the final portion of it really is that final installation and then programming the control system and teaching the client how to use it and handing it off. And we love to just be able to show off, especially sound systems and lighting in backyards. It's a lot of fun. That is all of all the content we have today. So we got in under an hour, which is great. Does anyone have any questions or anything we can help you with while we have a couple minutes?